some of our community members that evening. I can only say that the city, the police department, everybody has a deep level of hurt and disappointment in what we're seeing, and of course, a lot of anger. I'm angry, residents are angry, and residents are demanding answers. And so we'll do our best to ensure that we're updating the public as much as possible. Moving forward, we'll probably provide a daily briefing on social media and via email from my office to specifically give the public an update as well as the press. I was out one evening, happy to talk to the press at Sycamore Square. Members of the press wanted to speak with me there, and some felt unsafe, and so did not get the opportunity to speak with me. Some members of the press said, we fear for our safety. I'm the mayor of Antioch. I represent all of those people, and they don't have the option to say, I'm not showing up to Sycamore because I fear my safety. People live there. These are human beings, and we can't forget that. And so I'll continue to be out in the community to make sure that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing. Since September 2nd, 2024, a shooting that took place in Sycamore spurred a string of shootings within the Sycamore community. Many of you are aware of that. I am happy to say that we have experienced in the last 72 hours 0 shootings. So we're happy about that. But of course, we're not going to take our eye off the ball. We're going to continue the extra patrols in and around the Sycamore community to ensure that we have a strong presence there and ensure that those who are creating this havoc understand that we are not letting up and that the police department is keeping their eyes open to find you and hold you accountable. So Captain Vigil will give an update specifically around the investigations. At the next council meeting, I will be introducing a proposal for the city to fund over $100,000 for additional overtime for other agencies. As you know, a few days ago, I called on partner agencies throughout our region to specifically support so that we can add extra patrols in the Sycamore corridor. And one agency has taken us up on that offer. We're excited. I'm not prepared to announce what agency that is, but we will be working to finalize those details, and as soon as those details are available, we will announce that to the public if needed. We will also be moving forward on a parking permit program for the Sycamore area, specifically Pepper Tree and Lemon Tree. We've allowed that to fester for quite some time, and so now it's time to just try to begin restricting those areas to simply residents. We have allowed people to come from the outside and take over some of those streets for drug activity. That is slowly going to come to an end. I've also called on the DA to support the city through the Safe Streets Task Force. I sent her a letter on Monday re-emphasizing my support, and the chief has been working with the DA's office to see if we can get some assistance there. We are continuing to call and work with CHP to get additional support from them. Their support has been ongoing, but it's not consistent, and so we're going to continue to increase our overall advocacy efforts to ensure we get CHP support. And I'll continue to be on the field, making sure that that I understand what's happening in our community. Again, I cannot emphasize, and let me speak very clear to the people who have been wreaking havoc on our community. We are going to find you. We're going to hold you accountable, and you will pay the price for what you've done. And the day you find yourself in court, I will be right there in your sentencing hearing to ensure they lock you up and put you away for a long time. And I want to make that commitment to the residents of Antioch because you deserve peace and tranquility regardless of where you live in this city. Whether you live in the hills or you live in Sycamore, everybody in this community deserves peace and tranquility. And I'll continue to pursue tougher actions if needed. But I think these prescriptions in the interim are going to help us try to continue to subside the violence. So with that, I'll open it up to questions, but I'm going to allow Captain Vigil to specifically give you an updates related to the investigations and where we're headed.
Quick question. I'll ask it in English, but if you can say it in Spanish. One is, what that Sycamore Square, you had a problem with that strip mall earlier this year, I believe, and you said that you're either going to close it or you're going to put a permanent patrol. What happened with that, and why violence Say it
I
again.
I
En
was.
español, en español, en español.
Oh, lo quieres en español?
Both.
Well, let me give Chief Viejo the opportunity to say what he's got to say, and then we can open it up to questions.
Okay. So, and if you can say it in Spanish as well.
My Spanish is terrible.
Okay, no worries. So the question is, earlier this year, there was a problem at Sycamore Square, and the mayor said that he is either going to close it or you put permanent patrols there. It seems that that didn't work. And also, what's your force now at now? I think earlier you also had like 75 sworn officers, but the active officers were only like 50. And so where are you with that now? And if you're going to have overtime with that, that doesn't give you like in the long term like.
Well, before you, he's going to give his update, and then we're going to open it up to question and answers.
Okay.
You asked a lot there, so I'm going to try to stay on course and stick with what you asked first. We have constantly been working with the owners and the business owners and merchants in Sycamore Square as long as I've been here. The need seems to always change depending on what's going on there, who's coming in, who's going out, but our commitment to them and working with them in partnership has not changed. When we talk about in terms of our staffing level, we have had staffing levels for the last few years. Excuse me. And have been constantly working on rebuilding our staffing levels. Currently, right now, we have 7 officers in FTO. We have another 12 officers in the police academy, and we have 6 more starting the academy in 2 weeks.
How many active?
Active right now, you put me on the spot.
It's about 60.
I think it's a little bit more than that. We're in the
What's more
low
than that?
70s.
Oh,
But active wise, a little bit lower. I can follow up with you afterwards and get you the exact number. In terms of what we're doing now, we've had a staffed 2-man car that's been out there since last week. The chief has recently extended that staffing through this week and into next week. We have continually been working with our community partners, our faith-based groups, and our community-based organizations to try to find short and long-term solutions. We have reached out to our regional as well as our local partners for assistance. Like the mayor said, CHP has been out here to help us a couple times. Other agencies throughout the county through various programs have been out here to help us for the last few months. And we are in constant engagement with them in terms of when we can get help, what's the best way to utilize it, and moving that help forward to help us out. The chief right now is at the county chiefs meeting, echoing that sentiment to the other county chiefs for assistance to address this regional problem.
Captain, first of all, can we get your name and spelling on it?
Yes, sir. Joe Vigil. Vigil. The G silent.
And it's Captain.
Yes, sir.
So you said CHP has been helping. Can you be more specific, like very recently because of Sycamore or throughout the year because of the racist texting scandal shortage or what?
So CHP has a program in place where they go out like mini 6-man teams, depending on when you get them, what they have going on. And we've had the luxury of having their team out here 3 times. The last time was towards the end of May, and we have been in continual talks in getting the team to come out more often.
And where are we with the investigation? What have you gotten any leads or?
So our detectives division has been working nonstop, not only in preventing shootings, but trying to get these shootings to a place where they can be presented to the district attorney's office and they can move forward. All of the cases have been and are being worked very diligently by our staff, and there is a lot of information out there that they're compiling, putting together, trying to get cases ready to present to the DA to move forward with arrest and accountability.
Any arrests,
No.
suspects? Info on suspects or arrests? How many?
A lot of information out there that they're trying to hammer down to certain people so that we can make arrests. There have been no arrests yet.
Captain Vihel, this area, the Sycamore Square area, has been notorious for gun violence going back quite a long time. Am I wrong to say back to the 1990s? And what has been the issue there? Why has that corridor in particular been so violent? And then on the back end of that, you know, even with that violence, the previous 10 years, going through your crime data, the average homicide rate annually in the city has been 9.5. For the previous 10 years, you're already at, are you at 12, a dozen now?
I believe we are at 12, yes, sir.
So why has 2024 been so violent? And then that would be secondary to the Sycamore
I'm
Square.
sorry, our average is not 9. It's always been about 12 or It
I
has,
was looking at your crime stats that are
the crime stats are,
I went through your homicide stats.
I've looked at them too. I look at them all the time.
Yeah, some
The average is
Some
inaccurate.
years there were 9, some years there were 12, some years there were 10, some years there were 8. The average is 10 over the past 10 years. You can go through the data and look at it.
You went from 9 to 10.
9.5, fewer than 10. So why has Sycamore Square been an issue, and then why has 2024 been so violent?
Excuse me, because you're predating me, going back to the 90s. I can speak to the last couple of years. I think, obviously, with the changes in some of the laws around marijuana, the open-air drug market has made it very contentious in certain areas of town, as well as the swells of people who are associated with the open-air drug market, because there is, if you will, a competition. It's not as, because of Sycamore's location, where it's located, its accessibility to the neighborhoods and the people, it makes it a popular location for people to stop through, to visit, and to come out.
Did you stop having police patrols parked at Sycamore Square since earlier the year when you had those problems, and that's why the gangs kind of like took over it again?
I don't know so much if that's the case. We have been very attentive as personnel allows us to be out there, putting cars out there and personnel out there as we can, based on what we're seeing trend-wise out there. Monitoring our personnel has been a constant challenge for the last 2 years, and we are on a day-to-day basis reevaluating where we deploy personnel, how we utilize them, and where we put them.
I don't know if you answered the 2024 question. Why has 2024 been so violent with, a dozen homicides already when there's been an average of 9.5 over the previous 10 years?
With the amount of open cases we have and active investigations going, for me to sit down and pinpoint it on one thing, it's going to be very difficult till some of these cases start to resolve, or we can get some motives or track down some of the people responsible for it. So I think for looking at the latter part, it's kind of hard to tell. It's too early to tell till we get these investigations to a point where we can move forward with closing them up and making some
You wouldn't
arrests.
say there's an active gang war going on that's creating a lot of this, especially the past month, 14 shootings. This month so far.
So specifically to this month, we know that out of the shootings that have occurred since the homicide earlier this month, not all the shootings are related. The 3 shootings in particular are not related to the other shootings. And again, we suspect there are some gang undertones. Our detectives are still trying to flush that out to see how much of that is accurate before we say it's a gang issue.
Related to the Elijah Scales homicide on Labor Day?
Yes, sir.
Question for the mayor? Just, Mr. Mayor, I know you didn't want to be specific on an agency that may have agreed to mutual aid, but we do know you were in Pittsburgh with city leaders yesterday. That agency in Pittsburgh has also been embroiled with controversy here in Antioch, and I'm just wondering if you took into account the emotional toll it might take if there are other agencies that have been connected to that controversy working in this city.
I don't necessarily agree with the premise of your question, because what happened in Pittsburgh is different than what happened in Antioch. It may have started in Pittsburgh and then it snowballed into something completely different here in the city. So the issues they may have dealt with there are different than what we dealt with over here. And I was not in Pittsburgh yesterday, but I have met with city leaders throughout eastern Contra Costa County. So again, I'm not prepared to say which agency until we finalize how this will work out.
Can we get it in Spanish? I also have a question for you.
Okay.
Sorry, before we go to Spanish, I have another question for you. So yesterday, the city council meeting, a lot of residents were frustrated. They were disappointed, and they said that they want more comprehensive solution. Like some of them suggested having youth centers and bringing back, providing transport for the students going back and forth so that they can feel safe and provide more programs for them. And then also setting up a police substation. How is the city, taking all these recommendations into consideration, and how soon can we see some sort of plans or based on whatever that the residents have recommended come into reality? Maybe you can comment on that.
Well, some folks came last night and presented ideas, and last night was last night, and it's now 11 o'clock this morning, and so I took copious notes about some of the concerns. But I always no idea is new under the sun, and so the need for a youth center in Sycamore is something that many people have championed for a long, long time. The need for safe streets in and around Sycamore is something we've championed. We even got a grant from the Safe Grants Street program from the federal government. That is, I think it's about $17 million to redo L Street, and then we invested an additional $1 million to create Sycamore Drive and a few other streets in the area, much safer so that kids can walk through that community. So we're always working, but a lot of these things are long-term solutions, and I know that there's a need to have immediate action. And so, to the extent that we can find immediate action, we will do. I think having extra patrols is an immediate action. I think some of the ideas that community members put together in terms of having events at Sycamore Square, closing down Pepper Tree, and having local events there are immediate actions that not only the city can take, but community members can take as well.
What about the police substation that is that something that the force is also considering, maybe something long term and also currently as an immediate action?
Well, that's something we can consider, and we've talked about that for quite some time. I know Captain Beale has been was involved in a subcommittee that myself and Councilmember Torres Walker were related to Sycamore. And we've talked about substations. We've talked about having some type of municipal office there just to give presence and add extra security. But I think sometimes people need to take a course in civics and understand that no one person makes decisions in City Hall. There are 5 people who sit on the dais who makes decisions. If it were up to me, I would completely shut down Sycamore Square, and that would be the end of that. And we would move those businesses to other locations and find better use of those properties. I didn't have the support to do that, and that's the way our government works. And so, to the extent that we can provide immediate action, we will do that.
Mayor, you held a press conference there in 2021 talking about the need to focus on the crime there and clean up the crime there. Why do you think this time will be different? And as far as the long-term solution, obviously Pittsburgh or whoever can't assist forever. And could you answer in English and then also in Espanol for our friends?
Well, the long-term solution is hiring more police officers, which is what we're doing. Since we've hired close to 40 now since we've done the hiring incentive program. So the efforts that the police department has been doing with recruitment, the incentive program, and other things we've done is helping. So our active duty members of the police department has gone higher. So we have, I believe, 76 police officers assigned to the.
At 75 or 74.
75 or
Like I said, I
74.
have to look.
But 12 at the academy, and then 6 that we think are going to make their way here. So that's pretty exciting news because that'll put us in the 80s. And then as we get to next year, we'll then be shooting to get to 115. So that'll help a lot. Not only, I don't want anybody to have amnesia, but sometimes folks ask these questions as if we had forgotten what happened in the last 2 years. There was a self-inflicted wound. And that was that we have a lot of officers who face criminal charges related to the FBI investigation. That decimated police staffing levels, and that's decimated some of the special units that we had within the police department that I hope we can rebuild. And so we're rebuilding. One of the positive aspects that we have had is that as all that happened, we did have the community response team that was launched that did take some work off the police department by responding to lower level calls. So those things have helped. I sat at a meeting with Lieutenant John Fortner before the racist text messaging scandal, and we were sitting in a room and we were discussing. We were at Sycamore, and he said, "Right now, there aren't gangs affiliated with some of the challenges that are taking place in Sycamore. But if that vacuum is filled by a gang, that's going to be a problem for us in the long term." And I feel, I'm not saying this is the case, but I just feel that this is partly where we're at today. Is that whether they're loosely affiliated or heavily affiliated, we have a problem with groups trying to take over certain spots to sell dope, and so that's just not good at all.
Can we get it in Spanish? And also, one question also in Spanish, but you talking about putting a curfew, or you talked about it. But
Well, those are measures that I think that if the violence cannot subside and the things we're doing now is not working, we can certainly look
right.
at that.
So what is that? And but the question is, what would a curfew do if some of the shootings also happen during daytime, but in Spanish if you can, and then in English?
Well, most of them have happened at night, not in
Right,
the day.
but some. But okay. But what would you accomplish in whatever you said in Spanish, if you can?
Well, we're not there yet, so I'm not prepared to tell you. If the violence does not subside, then we can look at other measures.
Okay. So what you said in Spanish, what do you want to say? At the beginning.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
¿Cómo se dice curfew en español?
Bueno, lo que dijiste al principio, todo lo que dijiste al principio de la situación en español. Y toque de queda.
Toque de queda. Yes, answer.
To either of you, in English, please. You've talked a lot about shootings, unrelated shootings, some gang undertones, some shootings that are not related. Can you just give us a summation of sort of what's happened over the past few weeks and what your investigation is actually looking into?
So,
Back to Labor Day.
I'm sorry.
Going back to the Labor Day negotiations.
Correct. Without revealing too much, because we are very close in some cases. Like I said, there are three shootings that are not involved with the bigger number of shootings that we've been having. It is, and this is